Andy Kroll is with us. Andy is the associate editor of Mother Jones Magazine, motherjones.com. And Andy, you say the Koch brother fingerprints are all over Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, not to mention his insane policies. Tell us about it.
That's right, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Sure, and I should have started out by welcoming you to the program. I'm sorry.
No, great to be here as usual. When the Wisconsin protests first erupted, the first thing I did was, find out who's tracking the money in politics in Wisconsin and see who donated to Scott Walker's gubernatorial race in 2010. And as it turns out, very, very, very high at the top of the list, almost at the top, is the Koch Industries Political Action Committee, which is to say the political money arm of the Koch brothers, the right-wing titans of industry who have such massive influence in American politics. And they're a large donor. And not only is the Koch brothers PAC, but the Koch brothers gave a lot of money to the Republican Governors Association, which then in turn the RGA spent millions, more than $3 million, attacking Scott Walker's opponent here in Wisconsin. So the fingerprints of the Koch brothers are definitely all over Scott Walker and his actions here in Wisconsin, and how he got here.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry?
Scott Walker wouldn't. You could argue.
Oh, you said that's how he got here. I'm sorry. I thought you asked a question. So the way that Scott Walker became governor was with basically the wind behind his back was the Koch brothers and the right-wing infrastructure. I would toss in the Bradley Foundation, by the way, and the McIver Institute and the Wisconsin Policy Research Institute that are funded by the Bradley Foundation, which is based out of Milwaukee, and has thrown millions and millions of dollars into this as well. And what we have right here is a right-wing cabal, and they want to change America.
Well, yeah, I mean, you talk to people here in Madison, where I'm at, labor folks, people, Democratic Party, just people who are out here. They see it as not just Scott Walker going after collective bargaining, but an attempt starting in Wisconsin and possibly moving to other states, either in the Midwest or beyond, to really undercut a major source of power and a source of funding, source of support for the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. And, and they see it as through a distinctly political lens, because the labor folks say here in Madison, we're willing to make financial concessions. Right. We understand.
Well, they already gave up $100 million, in fact.
Right.
And they're willing to go farther.
They're willing to go to the bargaining table and say, yeah, okay, we'll take some, we'll take some more financial cuts, but we're not going to give up these bargaining rights. In fact, we don't see why you want to take those. And so people are seeing this in a political way, because it's not just a fiscal issue, but that this governor and very likely the folks behind him, the Republican machine, right-wing donors, want to undercut political power with this move. And that's what collective bargaining, eliminating collective bargaining would do. I mean, it would eviscerate unions in this state, and if it went to other states, you especially in the state level, state parties are the Democratic Party very closely linked to unions. And so you have a massive loss for the left if this thing passes and if it spreads.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, my take on this is that if Scott Walker wins, he's going to be the Republican presidential nominee in 2016. And if he loses, he's going to be toast. He'll be a one-term governor. And there's a lot hanging on this. And there are a bunch of billionaires whose fortunes are at stake. Because if this guy can become president in 2016, he will roll back the New Deal, and we will be back to 1920.
Walker in 2016, it's an interesting projection. Whether he would have the kind of support that, say, a Jeb Bush, who Republicans are clamoring for to run for president in 2012, whether he could go toe to toe with Jeb.
Well, I think it may be a Jeb Bush Scott Walker ticket. In fact, that wouldn't surprise me at all. That would make perfect sense, because Scott Walker's young enough that if he came in as VP, Jeb is a very, very, very strong candidate, and I think he could probably win in 2016, depending on who's going up against him, and if he had Walker as his VP. But in any case, the point is that the stakes here are incredibly high, and that these guys are thinking long term, and they have been for a long time, ever since Ronnie Reagan first declared war on organized labor by busting Patco. This has been a concerted effort to defund the last source or the major source of shoe leather on the ground, door to door, get out the vote, inform people, and one of the major sources of funding for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, there's no denying that. Absolutely not. And it's you can't understate the effect of getting rid of collective bargaining, undercutting the unions here in Wisconsin, and if that went to places, say, like Michigan, where, Republican Rick Scott is in power there. Now, Scott has said he won't go after something like this, but that's another, former union stronghold where unions are still pretty big, relatively speaking. But, yeah, there's, the national implications are huge, this idea of defunding the Democratic Party. And you can't underestimate those stakes, not just here in Madison, here in Wisconsin, but around the country.
Yeah, no, this was what Jude Wieniski laid out in the late 70s as a Republican strategist: defund, destroy the Democratic Party, the whole two Santa Claus theory, run up huge debts when Republicans are in power, and then scream about the debt when Democrats are in power, so that they can't play Santa Claus anymore and give away things like Social Security and unemployment benefits. And it's just, it's amazing when you look at the arc of history, Andy, as you've done a great job in your article in Mother Jones, Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, funded by the Koch brothers, of, this whole thing, this attempt to kill collective bargaining. We have about a half a minute. Can you define collective bargaining?
Well, collective bargaining is the right afforded to labor unions to sit down at the table with the leadership, political leadership, and have an honest discussion about benefits, pay, and, the kind of perks that they have.
Right. So if they get rid of it, basically, Scott Walker can say it's my way or the highway. He wants to be a dictator. Yeah. Andy Kroll, Mother Jones Magazine, motherjones.com, the associate editor. Andy, keep up the great work.